Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And up first, we have the acceptance and/or correction of minutes from the 5/8/23 public and non-public meeting.
I'll make a motion, we accept the 5/8/23 public and non-public minutes with corrections if need be.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Motion passes. And for announcements this evening, we have a few, so please bear with me. The first is that Eagle Creek has notified the town that they will begin refilling Glen Lake on May 26th. They hope to have the lake refilled by May 28th, weather and flow permitting. Every year, they rise the lake level 18 inches for the summer and lower it 18 inches for the winter when they have removed the flashboards. The normal lake elevation when full is 272.60 inches. So again, that will be May 26th and hopefully done by the 28th. Next up, announcement for the Goffstown Public Library. The Goffstown Public Library presents One Goffstown Together as a community event from June 8th to August 13th. They are providing a variety of programming, all of which will be accessible online, presented via Microsoft Teams. And those programs are What Are Hate Crimes and Hate Speech? That's on June 8th at 6:30 p.m. What is Implicit Bias? Thursday, June 29th at 6:30 p.m. What is Bullying? Thursday, July 13th at 6:30 p.m. How to Be an Ally? Thursday, July 20th at 6:30 p.m. How to Have Difficult Conversations? Thursday, August 10th at 6:30 p.m. And the Human Library, Sunday, August 13th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. presented at the Goffstown Public Library. More information and registration available on the Goffstown Public Library website at www.goffstownlibrary.com. And the flyer will be included in the packet. Okay. And we have two proclamations this evening. Whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, emergency management, and services that are vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Goffstown. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of Public Works professionals who are federally mandated first responders and the engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government in the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Goffstown to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works, first responders, and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas this year, 2023, marks the 63rd Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Goffstown, County of Hillsborough, State of New Hampshire, by the virtue of the authority vested in us, do hereby proclaim the week May 21st through May 27, 2023, to be designated as Public Works Week through the Town of Goffstown, New Hampshire, and urge all citizens to join in the Department of Public Works and the American Public Works Association in recognition of the substantial contributions of public works professionals and employees to protect our national health, safety, and quality of life. Given under our hand and seal, the 8th day of May, the year of our Lord, 2023, and that's signed by the Select Board. So, thank you to all of them for all of their hard work. I'm going to take a quick sip. We have another proclamation. So. All right. Whereas emergency medical services are vital public services, and whereas the members of Goffstown Fire and Emergency Medical Service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas Emergency medical services have grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital Medicare providers, medical providers. And whereas the members of the emergency medical services team, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Goffstown, County of Hillsborough, State of New Hampshire, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st to 27th, 2023, and with the EMS Strong theme, where emergency care begins, we encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Given under our hand and seal on this 22nd day of May in the year of our Lord, 2023, signed by the Goffstown Select Board. So thank you to all of them as well. That's the last long one I have to read for a minute. Okay. And Derek, do you want to go ahead and get started on the town administrator's report?
Sure. If you go to page 17 in your packet, you have your committee schedule for the next 3 weeks. On Wednesday of this week at 6:30 p.m., HTC will meet at Grassmere Town Hall.
Yep, got it.
And at 7 p.m., Conservation Commission will meet in this room.
Yes, I have that covered.
Thursday at 7 p.m., the Planning Board will be here.
Yes, I have that as well.
Just a reminder, on Saturday, the transfer station is closed in observance of Memorial Day, as well as the library is also closed on Saturday. Next Monday, Memorial Day holiday, Town Hall and the Goffstown Public Library will both be closed. And trash and recycling are on schedule for next week. The only meeting next week is Thursday at 6 p.m. CIP will be in this room.
I'll be there.
And then the week of June 5th, on Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. at the Parks and Rec Building, the Village Bridge Ad Hoc will meet.
I'll be there.
6 p.m. Economic Development Council on Wednesday of that week. And Thursday at 7 p.m. Planning Board on
I have
June.
that.
Thank you. At your next page, you have your consent agenda. We have employee status reports. You have an engineering technician resignation, and you have the accountant assistant finance director successful completion of probationary period. We also added 5 employee status reports from DPW this afternoon. They're all seasonal laborers. 1 is a rehire, and then there are 4 new hires. For event permits, you have the 44th annual Goffstown Gallop on June 24th from 8:30 to 11:15. You have the Uncanunic Mountaineers Snowmobile and Mini Bike Show and Swap Meet on October 14th from 8 to 3 p.m. At the Cemetery Field out on Mass Road. You have the Library Summer Skywatch on July 19th with a rain date of August 23rd from 8:30 to 10:30 p.m. at Barnard Park. You have a water betterment assessment for Lynchville Danis Park in the amount of $19,563.15. You have rights to inter for West Lawn Expansion Cemetery, Columbarium A, row number A, niche number 1. And then you have the proclamation that you read earlier this evening.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Collis. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstain, opposed? I think we can do public comment.
Okay.
All right, at this time, we'd like to open it up to public comment. If there's anyone here who would like to speak, please come up to the mic and state your name and address. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment.
Did you want to do the DPW director?
Yes, we'll move on. Adam, you're up.
Is that page 4 of your packet?
Thank you.
And just a reminder, we do have a 6:30 PM public hearing, but I'll keep an eye on that.
I did hear that, Derek, so I'll try my best.
It was for you specifically.
That's right. Okay, thank you. We've got a couple items tonight. First one, we've got a Department of Environmental Services Household Hazardous Waste Grant for signature. So this is one that we applied for last year. It's made it through all the steps. So now I think in your board chambers, you've got a copy for signature there. So I don't really have much for handouts, kind of the last step in that process. Just as a reminder, we do get the maximum grant amount per capita allowed under that program because we operate year-round. So we have it, by appointment, and that allows us to get that higher value. And then as a second reminder, this year with the new fee structure, we've eliminated the out-of-town non-resident drop-off, which thank you from the transfer station folks. They said it's made quite a difference in their day-to-day lives down there. So that's working out well.
Does anyone have any questions for Adam about the grant?
How much was it?
That's a good question. It's a couple $1,000s. I don't actually have a copy of it in front of me, so I don't remember the exact.
Well, we have it inside.
It is.
I can look it up after.
Okay. Sorry about that. I should have brought a copy. So I think you'd maybe just need a vote for the chair to sign the grant
To sign.
or
The
to authorize
application.
me to sign it. Either one works.
Make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Mark. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Second grant, when we have, this is one that we've got every couple of years or so. Whenever we have recycling equipment or machinery on the CIP, we're eligible to apply for a New Hampshire the Beautiful grant. In your packet, I gave a little memo with a quick write-up about the program. Basically, it's something that the bottling and beverage companies have kind of put together to start a fund anyway to sort of further the recycling in the state of New Hampshire. This is administered by the NRRA group at their board meetings. It's a nonprofit group. Typically, we can expect about $5,000 on these grants, but we don't know the exact amount until they receive their application and kind of weigh the pros and cons of our submission. It's on a rolling basis, so they don't wait until the end of the year or anything. So first come, first serve, and I expect we'd have a pretty good shot at it. This year, we've got a couple things that would be eligible, but the best one, I think, is the compactor that's being replaced in the recycling building. Actually, next month, it's scheduled to arrive. It's something that's used several times throughout the day, and those load the recycling trucks, or it loads the recycling trucks. And the compactor allows us, rather than loose fill, to get a higher quantity of recyclable material in the truck for the same volume. So with the board's permission, there is an online application now. It used to be paper. When you apply online, though, you have to do a little digital signature. So unless somebody here wants to fill that out, I'd recommend that you authorize me to sign the online application and get that submitted.
Make a motion to authorize DPW Director Jacobs to sign for the grant.
Okay.
Second.
No.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Mark. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? Motion passes.
This is just something we've already purchased, though, right?
That's correct. Yep. This one's a reimbursement grant.
Right.
And I should mention that both of those grants are budgeted grants, so you don't have to go through the full public hearing process to accept them.
And can I just mention, the household hazardous waste grant was for $4,573.
Thank you.
Good.
Thanks,
More than
Derek.
I thought.
Yeah, thanks.
Next item. I've got a memo for this, and I believe
It's on page
11.
11, yes.
Thank you. So in the 2023 CIP, we've got funds budgeted to replace, we have a roll-off trailer. It's a 2004. So this trailer is used to cart our movable, so for demolition, metals, any of these larger containers that we have on site to the places we bring them for final disposal or for recycling. We currently have a trailer, but the request through CIP was to replace it with a truck, which would handle smaller containers than our tractor trailer can with this existing trailer, but similar cost. They're pretty expensive, these trailers. I'd like to purchase a used truck instead. That will allow us to, with some modifications to our container size, we'd be able to use any other containers that are readily available. So our containers are oversized, and we have a hard time when we're down to one long-haul tractor trailer, which happens a few times a year. We can't find anybody that has a big enough roll-off trailer, certainly not a truck, to haul our containers. So it gives us some more flexibility going forward, and that way if we're ever in a bind, we can find somebody and pay them to haul a container for us and use a regular standard container. So going forward, as we replace those containers, they'll also be a little less expensive.
So you're asking to increase your fleet.
So the request here, right, is to change a roll-off trailer into a truck that has the roll-off bed.
Roll-off trailer's been with us almost about 9 years, right?
That one, it was '04, so almost 20 years. Yep.
Almost 20 years.
Yep.
There's no way you're ever going to get that kind of a life out of a used truck. So you're actually going to be increasing your, not only your maintenance, but also your vehicle replacement costs in the future. I'm not sure that that offsets the savings you get by buying it, by using the trailer as we have been.
There is the trade-off, so the flexibility of it, you're, like you said, we can get a bigger trailer, we can haul more. When we're in a pinch, though, the struggle is, what do we do when you're out of trailers or out of containers and you have your long-haul truck that's, making runs each day. Now it becomes a challenge to get those additional roll-offs carted, which is what we're up against.
Adam, have you looked already? I know the budget amount was $150,000. Is that within the ballpark of what's out there right now?
Yep, we've been able to find something that's 4 or 5 years old, kind of in that price range, but they're kind of all around the country. So the request for tonight would be, if the board's amenable to it anyway, allow us to actually go look at one, inspect it. If it looks good, be able to place a small deposit on it, and then come back to the board and request permission to actually complete a purchase. But another option would be to put out an RFP for a used roll-off truck, just based on where we're finding trucks that are for sale. I'm not sure if we're going to have a lot of response in the used market. We might be able to, but
Jim, did you have a question?
No. What's the life expectancy of a used truck that's 4 or 5 years old?
so if it's only being used for the container moves, it's not going to be a daily driver type thing. It'll be 3, maybe 4 days a week. If we can get at least 15 years out of it, I think that'd be pretty good. That'd be about the same replacement cycle that we're looking from a trailer perspective. If we bought a new one trailer, obviously it'd be five years further down the road currently, but in theory we like to hold something like that. It's not used all the time for about 20 years.
And what's a new roll-off cost?
It's pretty similar. I'd have to get updated numbers because it was comparable in price last year when we put together CIP, but I'd have to look now and see if the board doesn't want to go this route, what a verbal quote would be on a new trailer.
I'm not a fan. Add more used equipment. It's just used equipment. Somebody's getting rid of it because it's used equipment.
I can tell you, if the board does not want to pursue this, we go back to the drawing board. I don't know if we would replace the trailer with the same size that we have for some of these same concerns. So we might have smaller and then have some container modifications. One thing that we ran into this past year was a cable and some sheathing were only available through the manufacturer in Canada, and they didn't have it in stock. So we sat for a bit. I think it's tricky.
But we've run into the same issues with trucks too.
This is true.
That didn't have parts available, so that's...
Yep.
Do you know what the turnaround time might be on a new one? We've had a hard time getting vehicles to somewhere.
I'm not sure on a roll-off trailer. They're probably more readily available than our live floor trailers are. Those are a little bit more specialty. There's a lot more hook lift, type companies out there. So I think we could probably get a faster turnaround. We wouldn't be into the 18 to 24 months like we seem to be with the solid waste trailers, but I'm not sure how much faster.
Yes.
I agree with Peter. If we're gonna buy something, I'd rather buy new than used. If you don't mind doing a little bit of homework, see what a new one costs versus the used one. We were buying something new from the ground up, and instead of getting 15 years, you might get 20 years out of it we might get our money's worth out of it. And I'm in favor of the, looking for a new roll-off truck, Kelly, instead of a used one.
Just to clarify, I wasn't advocating for a new roll-off truck. I was advocating spending the $150,000, which was budgeted for a roll-off trailer. A brand-new roll-off trailer. That new roll-off trailers last us 20 years for a roll-off trailer. I don't think with the way the trucks are built these days, that you're going to get 20 years out of a truck, or even you're lucky to get 10. So, but that's just me. I'm looking for the long term and not the short term.
Yeah.
I know it's always something there to make something a little bit easier, but it could also be more expensive in the long run.
So would the board be amenable to have Adam start looking at the used ones and a newer roll-off?
What they're asking for here is permission to buy a truck.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm asking if he can look and bring us some back and then the new cost as well.
So you want to change what he's asking for? Because he's asking to to go out and inspect the truck, and if they like it, put a deposit on it.
Do you have one already in mind?
We had about 5 or 6 around the country that were, look suitable, but, you know, until you're there and inspect the,
I'm just trying to keep
Frame,
it
et cetera.
moving while getting us the best bang for our buck. And
I
if they're the
understand,
same cost,
But
it's applicable.
so you would have to adjust this as to say, you know, he's going to send the fleet supervisor and solid waste supervisor to travel, if necessary, to inspect the truck and place a deposit. So you're putting this in their hands to place a deposit on a truck.
Well, I mean, I'm not doing anything. I just asked if we could look at the same time to try to make a good decision. That's all. If that's possible. If you don't have something in line right now, I think it would be good to look at some other options. A newer roll-off trailer and the used ones.
I can
Do you
certainly.
have a faster turnaround time than our next meeting?
I mean, I don't think it's not a, you know, an emergent item,
Okay.
and I don't think there's any danger of, you know, missing out on a bunch of these. You know, they're not exactly flying off the shelves, I have a feeling, but just because it's used, you know, typically it's kind of a harder nut to crack as far as, you know, buying sight unseen sort of thing. What I could do for the next meeting would be bring some comparable numbers, or bring some numbers for a new roll-off trailer in the current size, and then a new roll-off truck, and then maybe I'll bring a couple ads for used roll-off trucks. We do, you know, for what it's worth, we are getting pretty good lifetime right now out of our larger trucks. I don't have my CIP list in front of me, but even the plow trucks, we're getting 10 to 12 years, and those are getting obviously rode pretty hard throughout the season. So I don't think it's a stretch to think we could get 20 years out of a roll-off. But to Peter's point, I don't want to. If a new one is not that much more expensive, maybe that makes sense. And if a trailer is the way to go, then so be it. But
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little bit more information before we move on with that, I think that would be, is everyone okay with that?
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
say, the numbers for
Yeah.
comparison.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Great. Thank you.
okay. Thank you. And then I have one extra item. If
You have 7 minutes.
7 minutes, I can do it. I can do it as long as my son leaves me alone. He's trying to get a hold of me. Dad, I can't remember my internet password. I had asked Derek if the chair would allow extra item tonight. As you probably know, the John Neville Excavation is performing rail trail improvements at the Tatro Drive area. On our road plan for the year was sidewalk installation on Tatro itself. So when the rail trail realigns from the back now, we got pedestrians there. It's becoming pretty clear based on our staffing that this road plan is going to be a tricky one to get completed. So we're starting to look at ballast or areas where we might be able to kind of load shed a little bit. I asked engineering to have Neville give a number if they were asked to add our work on top of the rail trail work, what it would cost. I do have a number from you, I just didn't know how you want to proceed with this, being that we're almost June. So for $128,000, they said they could do the work. I don't have any other quotes. That was just because they were there already for the rail trail work that we asked them for a number. So I don't know if the board is interested in trying to get quotes turned around. If I put something like this out to bid, we don't have bid specs developed, but we could do something pretty quick. If we short cycle the bid advertisement, I might be able to get a recommendation of award on the meeting for the 12th. Or if the board wants me to get quotes instead of a sealed bid process, obviously we can get that quicker. Just didn't know how you want me to proceed, because it's looking like we might be hard pressed to get there with town forces.
I'd be okay with quotes. I mean, when is this process supposed to start?
So he says his planned start for the rail trail is next month.
That number was 128?
Yes, 128, 137.
How many feet, what's the total distance? Do you know that?
So it's about 350 feet of sidewalk, and then a little bit on each end, then there's drainage because you're raising a granite curb, you have to catch the water. We have a little bit of a drainage problem at the bottom where it meets Mass Road, so we'd be correcting that at the same time.
Excellent.
So I'm understanding the
Do
recommendation.
you want me to make a motion?
Sure.
Make a motion that we go out for quotes on work on Tatro Drive.
And we'll never hold that price till our next meeting to make a decision?
Didn't ask, but I think
Okay.
knowing John,
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for
We
him,
could
but I think
get
he would.
something by the next one, just to not impede with that 1 month time frame. That would be great if you can hustle out some quotes.
And that would be the request, bring the quotes back to the 12th. Okay.
Second.
All right, motion by Pete, seconded by Jim. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? Motion passes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry for the...
4 minutes early.
All right. I could probably fill that time.
No?
That's okay.
Thanks.
All right, so we do have a public hearing coming up at 6:30, but my guess is that you're probably all here for questions about the falls. So this public hearing tonight is specifically related to a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with the existing Gregg Falls Hydroelectric Renewable Grant Generation Facility and their continuation of that. So this is a contract where they get, well, we'll get into that in the hearing. But my guess is that a lot of you are here for additional questions beyond that. So in just a moment, I'm going to ask Vice Chair Georgantis to give a little recap of a meeting that we had today, just to give you all some information, if that's maybe more what you're here for. And if not, and you would like to speak about something other than this agreement, we will have an additional public comment at the end of the meeting. But this public hearing is strictly to speak about the payment in lieu of taxes agreement for the hydroelectric. Okay? You want to go ahead?
Yep, so we met today with members of New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. I want to make sure that we thank them for the time that they've come down. It was Mark Sanborn, Assistant Commissioner, Corey Clark, Chief Engineer, Ted Deers, Assistant Water Division Directors, and Dan Matei, Operations and Maintenance Engineer from the Water Division of the Dam Bureau. They came down and were specifically here to talk about the Hadley Falls Dam. For those of you who don't know what the Hadley Falls Dam, that is the one right here in town. That dam is scheduled to lose its licensing about before the end of the week. They'll inform, New Hampshire DES will inform FERC, which is the federal agency that controls dams, that they are no longer going to continue to maintain that dam. We were told today that it could potentially be somewhere between $5 and $10 million to upgrade the dam to make it safe. They're more than welcome, the state's more than welcome to sell it to us, but then we would be required to repair the dam and maintain it. So that's kind of where we are. We'll have more discussions on it, and we have to make a decision and relay to the state which way we want to go. They did offer to hold off for 6 months as far as the plans to remove, but they gave us the option if we wanted to go ahead and start looking both ways, looking for possible grants, and have them start looking at what it's going to cost to do it, that we could do that, and that's a decision the select board will have to make.
And just furthermore, some takeaways out of that meeting, and just to fill you all in on what the select board is doing to try to foster those conversations and work with the state on this decision that they've already made. The first is that we are going to be requesting that the feasibility studies that will give us more information about what our options are, that those will have a vote tonight. I'm hoping that we'll vote to have that done more quickly. They were anticipating January 2024, but I think we're going to try to expedite that. But we'll discuss that tonight. We're also going to work on releasing some meeting minutes on a webpage on the town that will be dedicated specifically to this, so we can try to share more information. And New Hampshire DES has agreed to work with the community to try to provide more information to the residents, because we'll do the best we can to share anything that we have, but we can only share what they give us, and unfortunately they're the decision makers and the information givers. So we're going to work with them, and they have also agreed to have a public hearing or a public meeting with the town, and we'll help facilitate that conversation so that you can go and ask them any questions that you might have.
That'll be like in 2 or 3 months, he said. Once they have more information, we'll have more information, then they could possibly have that meeting, so all the stakeholders, residents can all sit in if they want and get some more information, get their questions answered.
Yeah. So we are working on trying to get more information, potentially starting a committee of stakeholders, bring them to the table to work on some options for what we could potentially do with that space, or what the actual cost would be for the removal will happen, so it would be a rebuild at that point, or any other options we might have. That being said, none of those, we'll kind of hash that all out this evening, hopefully. But we are supposed to have a public hearing right now. So just to go back and reiterate that we're just going to be discussing in this public hearing the payment in lieu of taxes agreement with the already existing hydroelectric facility. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and read the notice. The Goffstown Select Board is conducting the public hearing in accordance with RSA 72:74 to receive public input and take action regarding the adoption of a pilot, or payment in lieu of taxes, agreement for a renewable generation facility located at 55 Mass Road, identified as a tax parcel, map 5, lot 15-2. The pilot agreement would be between the town of Goffstown and Greg Falls Hydroelectric Associates Limited Partnership for a proposed term of 5 years.
And Scott, can you talk to me?
Scott, would you please come up? I can find you. You gotta stand
You're hiding back there.
I was hiding back there. So I'm Scott Bartlett, Town Assessor. Thank you for letting me speak with you today. I am proposing this and recommending this pilot agreement. In the past, before I was the assessor here, we did have a pilot agreement with Greg Falls Hydro. It had expired a few years before I came on, and when I came here, I appraised it as I would any other normal property. Where I've had some real issues with the dam, or not the dam, the pilot, or the hydroelectric facility, is the discrepancy we have seen over the years between my assessment and the state's assessment. When I first came here, the state's assessment was significantly lower than the value that I ultimately put on the property. I have raised that over the years in, not huge increments, but I have been raising that value. I was up to about $3.4 million in 2018 when I last did the update of value. The state in 2014 increased the value of that substantially, and I did speak with the state about that, and I could never really get a straight answer as to why. Then this year they lowered it substantially, and their current value is more in line with what I expect I would be at the end of this update. One of the other things that comes into play when you're dealing with a property like a hydroelectric facility is that it's not impacted by the changes in market value like residential property is. And because of that, it causes a situation where if this property had decided to appeal their taxes this year, we would have had to give them an abatement. The assessment for 2022, when you equalize it, is significantly more than I will be if I have to value this for 2023. I do believe the plant is somewhere worth around 4 million, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. I really haven't had the time to truly analyze and come up with a final value, but I did spend some time speaking with the representative of Eagle Creek, who owns the dam, and we looked at, you know, some of the different options. I expect that if I had used, well, I don't expect, I know that if I had used the state's value this year, our taxes on that property would have been about $72,000, a little over $72,000. That's one of the numbers that we were looking at when we were discussing where we would come to an agreement. And basically I proposed 75,000, he was agreeable to that. One of the things that makes a pilot so advantageous to both the property owner and to the town is that it's set in stone. It's $75,000 a year for 5 years. There's not going to be any change to that. Equalization, which is something that I am always struggling with for, again, these types of properties, also industrial properties, also big commercial properties, equalization can cause a lot of havoc. The problem with those is I do not have the option to propose a pilot. The only property that I can propose a pilot is a renewable generation facility. So we currently have one on the two solar facilities. It's one big one, but it's actually two different lots. This is the only other property that we could propose this. This last 5 years, seeing what has happened with the market and how it's impacted, it causes a lot of confusion. This is a way to, at least for this one property, in addition to the solars that we already have, to get rid of some of that confusion and have something that's set in stone. We don't have to worry about it for 5 years. At the end of the 5 years, we can look at it again and see if where we want to go from there. They may opt not to, they may opt to continue it, we don't know. But again, it gives us predictability.
And it also gives them predictability, is that correct?
Yes, it does.
And they were agreeable to these numbers?
Yes, they've already actually signed the agreement. And at the end of this, the one thing I would ask at the end of this public hearing is that the board vote to authorize Kelly as the chair to, I'm sorry, Ms. Boyer as the chair to sign the agreement.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. I'm going to ask that you stay up here for the public comment, just in case anyone has any specific questions that you can answer. Anyone else have questions?
But I think it's
Yeah.
Okay.
pretty easy to
So
understand.
at this time, I'm going to open up the hearing to accept public comment. So if you would like to come up and speak on the pilot program, please state your name, your address, and please note that you'll have a 3-minute time limit. So would anyone like to come up and speak? Okay, seeing none, we will, go ahead.
My name is Mikhail Gregoire. I live at 174 Elm. And my only question is the pilot transferable if ownership changes?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a current lease on a dam that we would expect an ownership change to possibly take place?
I would severely doubt that.
Okay.
I don't expect that. The lease is with the state, I believe, I'm pretty sure that the state owns the dam itself, and they pay the state for the right to use that facility. But I don't expect this to sell anytime soon. It sold 2015, I believe, to Eagle Creek, and they have a portfolio of dams across the country, actually. This is one of the ones they own. I believe they do, they're a fairly solid company. Unless something terrible happens to this, I don't expect that to happen. But again, this agreement would be transferable to them.
Okay. Do we happen to have the length of term of the current lease?
I don't.
I'm just out of curiosity.
That's not really what, that has nothing to do with us. The lease is the state, that's the state of New Hampshire. We're here dealing with the amount of tax that we're going to charge that facility. That's what we're talking about. And that facility is going to be charged $75,000 a year for the next 5 years. That's the agreement. That's what we're talking about. Who leases the dam, I don't, that's not up to
It's none of our
us.
business.
Yeah, that's none of our business, that's the state's business at this time.
Perfect, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, at this time, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And I'll just say it one more time, if anyone would like to speak regarding anything else, we do have a public comment at the end of our meeting. I will forewarn you, we have a pretty hefty agenda tonight, but you're more than welcome to stay and speak at that point in time. All right, I will entertain a motion, please.
Does this only have to have the one public hearing?
Correct,
Yes.
yes, and you have the
Make a
ability.
motion that we enter into a pilot agreement
And authorize.
and authorize the chair to sign
I'll second that
with
motion.
Greg Falls Hydroelectric.
Motion by Pete, seconded by Collis.
You want to put
Any-
the amount in there? You did mention the amount on it.
It's in there, it's in the agreement.
$75,000.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. All right, motion on the floor. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? All right, motion passes. All right, I think we're back to Derek.
Yes.
Volunteer appointments.
Yes, on page 19 of your packet is where we left off. I have volunteer appointments. The Goffstown trustees of the trust fund made a recommendation to the select board to reappoint Brian Lombardi as an alternate member with a term ending March 31st, 2024, and to reappoint Scott Gross as an alternate member with the same term ending March 31st, 2024.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Brian Lombardi and Scott Gross as alternate members to the trustee of trust funds with terms expiring March 31st, 2024.
Second.
Motion by Collis, seconded by Peter. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? Motion passes.
At your next page, page 20, you have your assessor recommendations. You have a current use application and land use change tax recommended for map 9, lot 18, and map 9, lot 94-1. You have a 2023 warrant for pilot agreements. These are the two for the solar, map 3, lot 47-1 SP, and map 3, lot 47-6 SP. And then you also have map 5, lot 15-2 for the Eagle Creek hydroelectric.
Motion to approve the assessor's recommendation is presented.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? Motion passes.
At page
Can I
21,
just one thing, does that agreement that is to Greg's Fault Hydroelectric Associates Limited Partnership?
yes,
right?
it is not Eagle Creek, that is correct.
I just want to
yes.
make sure
Yep.
we have that in the.
Yes, thank you. At page 21, we have been notified by the state of New Hampshire that we were successful for the Invest NH Municipal Per Unit Grant Program. This is for Woodland Village on Bog Road. There were two separate applications, one for Phase 1 for $310,000 and one for Phase 2 for $320,000 for a total of $630,000. I'm requesting authority to sign acknowledgement of receipt award and any other necessary paperwork to send it to Governor and Council, and then to schedule a public hearing to accept and expend the grant funds on your next meeting on June 12th.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
You want me to read the whole thing again?
Yes, please.
Motion to authorize the town administrator to sign the acknowledgement of receipt of award administration for municipal per unit grant awards totaling $630,000 and any other related grant paperwork subject to the board conducting a public hearing to accept and expend the grant funds under RSA 31:95-B, and that public hearing would be held on June 12th, 2023.
Thank you. And that was a motion by Pete, seconded by Mark. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? Motion passes.
And the next item on that same page, I'm seeking similar authorization for the Invest NH Municipal Demolition Grant Program. This is for the residences at Hadley Falls. The application requested reimbursement of demolition costs of $349,840. We have not received a yay or nay on this application, but these funds are very limited, and the state is seeking a quick turnaround. So those communities that have either more frequent board meetings or a city or I guess a town council form of government with town manager would be able to grab those funds before they are necessarily available. So my request is, if awarded those funds and authorization to sign the acknowledgement of receipt of award, and then to, as well as any other related grant paperwork, and that would be subject to the board conducting the public hearing under 3195B.
Motion to authorize the town administrator to sign the acknowledgement of receipt of award administration for the municipal demolition grant, if awarded for the residents at Hadley's Falls, totaling $349,840, and any other related grants paperwork, subject to the board conducting a public hearing to accept and expend grant funds under RSA 31:95-B.
Second.
Motion by Pete, seconded by Mark. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained?
Have we heard anything about our request for demolition grant?
The work has to be done before you can be reimbursed. So we are just lining up the excavator. Eversource is ready to disconnect the power. We have an excavator coming in to excavate the sewer and water so that they can cap that, and then the chosen demolition company will come in and demolish. So working with Roger to get that taken care of.
Okay, and did we adjust the numbers with?
Yes, we did, and that amount was reduced below $25,000 to, here it is. Signed the paperwork this morning, to $23,750.
Cool.
So what's the time frame, Derek, for starting?
We've got to get the excavator to come in, so.
Well, the only reason I ask is I want to make sure we get word out to folks, message board,
Yep.
social media, that it's going to be a little hectic down there.
Yes.
So I don't imagine it's going to take long for them to tear that building down.
No,
A
no,
few
it
days,
is.
3 days maybe.
Yep.
4 days.
Yeah, and we're going to work with the church
Okay,
on.
give people plenty notice.
Yep.
Thank you.
Now, you say the excavator, a private company coming in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So your next page, on page 22, you have revised job descriptions from the fire chief. This is mostly centered around a change to the title of the I guess, office or department that was described last week. This is for the Division of Community Risk Reduction. So there's a renaming from Fire, Life, Health, and Safety Division to the Division of Community Risk Reduction. And you have revised job descriptions for the Deputy Fire Chief, the Captain of Community Risk Reduction, the Captain of Training, and the Part-Time Fire and Inspector.
So these are just title changes?
Yes.
Well, there's some duty changes too, wasn't there?
Duty, were there any, there were no duty changes, correct?
The only one would be the captain of the Division Community Risk Reduction with the addition of the health officer is in that job description.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
Who was the health officer before this? You?
I've been serving as the interim since Mark retired.
So that's one more thing off your plate,
It is.
so we can find some more stuff to put on.
He's not laughing.
No. All right, any questions? Take a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the new job title descriptions that was presented this evening for the Fire, Life, and Safety Health Division and Community Risk Reduction, and any others that were presented to us this evening.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstained? And Next up, we have the proposed financial policies.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have you flip forward quite a bit in your packet to page 61. So these are proposed financial policies. The accountant and assistant finance director and the finance director submitted a revised investment policy. Let's see, this was originally adopted by the select board in 2004. It has been readopted multiple times, 2007, 2014, 2015, and 2016. The changes are on page 62 through 64. Primarily, we're changing Board of Selectmen to Select Board. And then the only other change is that under the authorized, unauthorized investments, the Assistant Finance Director has recommended some additional language to speak towards high risk, such as cryptocurrency and derivative hedging instruments. And just a reminder that the Assistant Finance Director came to us directly from the auditing firm that is performing our audits, so he's making those recommendations. And then you have 4 new financial policies for the board to consider: a draft capital asset policy, draft grants management policy, draft policy and notice of non-discrimination, and a return payment policy. And the finance directors here can answer any questions you might have as well.
Does anyone have any questions?
On the capital asset policy, is there anything in here that talks about disposal of? What the
Like trade-ins, you mean, or putting
trade-ins
stuff
or
out to
sales?
sales? Okay.
So I believe most of the sales or disposition of excess falls into our purchasing policy. This is, I believe, more of the accounting for how capital assets are depreciated over time.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this isn't,
This is-
doesn't have anything to do with the disposition of.
Correct, yeah. This is only how we're going to record these on the financials to make sure that there's consistency across the town for all assets.
And is there anything different than your grant management policy that?
We didn't have one before. So
These
this is-
4 are
So
new.
does this pretty much follow what we're doing now?
It does. It also memorializes things that we need to do in order to be in compliance with existing grants. So some of our grants, now that we're in a new threshold with federal funds, require that we hold certain policies and have current versions of those policies. So we're bringing these forward to make sure that we're in compliance where we didn't have a policy, but we had the practice. We're now formalizing it by getting these in place.
And this still goes to it comes to the board to approve application and then receiving
Yes.
per select board recommendation.
Yep, absolutely.
And whether we authorize somebody to sign for it like we did.
Right, yep, this has more information about how we're going to track and record grants in our accounting ledger specifically.
Any other questions on grant management? Policy and notice of non-discrimination policy?
Is this pretty much cut, I mean.
This one,
boilerplate?
yeah, this one is very standard. This one has to do with the federal requirements. Because we have federal funds, we have to ensure that we meet all of the federal, civil rights, Title VII, all of those chapters. So this, again, just formalizes that.
These have to be posted in workplaces?
These aren't specific to the employee, so we're still an equal opportunity employer. We have all of those postings. These are specific to who we deal with as a vendor. So making sure that we're not discriminating when we're selecting vendors that are using grant funds, and that the contractors comply with all of these requirements as well if we subcontract work.
If you're dealing with a minority company or something like that, they want you to.
Gotcha, thank you.
It ensures that we don't use any companies that may not be in compliance with the federal requirements, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? All right, and finally, for the new policies, the return payment policy. Do you want to just give a little insight into this one?
Sure. This is one that we've really been looking for a while. This one isn't obviously grant-related or anything, but this one is just to formalize our process. Again, we've had issues where, you know, if somebody bounces a check, we had no formal guidelines to say, when is it too many times? Can somebody come in and bounce a new check every single week and that's it? Or are we going to set thresholds to say, you know, if you're going to bounce a check after a certain number of events, you're going to have to change to a different type of payment, to really just set those boundaries and make sure that we have a policy to go by so that everybody is treated the same for the similar actions.
And our bounce fees are in our fee schedule, right?
They are, yeah, that's correct. So this just talks about, you know, when letters will be sent out, how many letters will be sent out. It identifies the state RSAs that are applicable, and it also formalizes the fact that it's not just checks, but also electronic payments now that we receive ACH and credit card payments. So if somebody issues a stop payment after payment's made, that's going to return the funds to our account and will incur those fees. So we would use the same process to track down those funds.
Does anyone have any questions on any of these?
Do you need to take these one at a time?
Yes, please.
To adopt?
Yeah.
Yes, so one would be on the investment policy. We would seek the proposed amendment as detailed in the packet, and all others would be to adopt.
So the investment policy, what was that again, Derek?
To accept the amended version in your packet this evening.
Make a motion that we accept the amended version of the investment policy originally adopted on 6/27/16.
Second.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Jim. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain?
Make a motion that we instill a capital asset policy, which would be new, as presented.
Second.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Mark. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? Motion passes.
Can we keep going?
Yes, please, adopt the...
Yeah, adopt the grants management policy, which is new as of this evening.
Second.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Mark. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? Passes.
Adopt the policy and notice of non-discrimination, which is also new as of this meeting.
Second.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Mark. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain?
Adopt a return payment policy, which is also new as of this evening.
Second.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Mark. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
New business.
I had one item for town administrator that did not make it into the packet. Eversource is, you may be aware, is doing quite a bit of transmission work throughout the town. They're currently at the Glen Lake waterfront in the beach area. They've requested a waiver from the select board for 4 nights to do night work. They have 2 of the large structures that they need to install, and they're unable to do it during the day due to the impact to the traffic that's there. So they've already coordinated with the police department. They're seeking May 31st and June 1st. They'll be completing the structures at that location, and then on June 28th and June 29th, they would be actually putting the poles. These are the 2 poles closest to the water on the north side of the lake. They would go from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Motion to approve the 4 dates for construction on the
Towers?
It's the Q190 or the C196 transmission line.
C196 transmission line.
Second.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Collis. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? Motion passes. And Derek, just, I'm assuming that with the coordination with the police department, we'll put out notices
Yes.
for that?
Yep.
Through
Put lots of
Nixle?
notices because they're in here, but just people on the lake, there'll be echoes across there.
Thank you. Anything else, sir?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Under new business, I'd like to discuss the meeting this afternoon and the direction we want to take.
Okay, so the first, I wrote down a little list of things that to take out of the meeting. So the first would be the motion, or send a formal request from the select board to New Hampshire DES to request that they begin those feasibility studies as soon as possible, because as we heard today, we can't go into any of the collaboration coordination processes of an outcome without those studies being done, so.
I'll make a motion that we formally request DES to initiate a feasibility study and expedite its completion for the removal of the Hadley Falls Dam.
Second.
But, you know,
So that eliminates the 6 months that they had talked about.
Correct, it should.
That is one of the studies, that's the most important studies. They would still have the water course study and some other.
But I'm saying, what
Yep.
they had originally said they weren't gonna do anything for 6 months, now we're asking them to start the process now.
Yeah, which I think they should.
Well, no, I don't have a problem with that, I just wanna make sure we're all talking the same thing here.
Yes, and I think the outcome from that is they're, hopefully at the end of it, they will give us a list of options that we have as a community. So if we do decide to move forward with a, I don't know, a committee or something like that, or involve the planning board or whatever we decide to do, we can't do any of that until that's done. So I guess what would be is there any benefit to waiting the 6 months? Can't think of it.
Are we going to, this is, I guess, more of a discussion type of thing now, are we going to try to search for some of these grants? Is that feasible?
We have not had an opportunity to go through some of the new federal infrastructure grants. We can. My fear is to maintain or to remove and rebuild the dam, as was discussed this afternoon. I think the thing I heard was you're going to be competing against projects that have a higher return on investment, and you're going to be competing for limited federal dollars. But if the board wishes us to, we can start looking at those items.
And New Hampshire, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody read between the lines, what Mark was saying was that maybe you don't want to concentrate grant efforts on Hadley Falls, but possibly grant efforts in the future to other two dams.
Well,
That's,
I'm very uncomfortable about dealing with Hadley Falls separate from the other ones. I think, I would like to know, you know, if we're gonna, my feeling is, after hearing today, that, you know, probably Hadley Falls is gone, but I would fight for Greg Falls, I mean, because that's when the houses started coming in and everything, so, and I think that's what most people would start fighting for. So if, as long as I felt that we had a chance to, you know, to stop it at Greg Falls and keep the lake and, you know, below the lake where you're interested in too, that's, you know, I agree. I'd feel much better about Hadley Falls going if I knew that we had, you know, that was the plan, and,
Yeah.
how many shots at the pear do you get, or bites at the apple do you get?
Well, so a lot of pieces to this puzzle.
Well, I think too, we haven't received any formal notification, I don't think that we will for a bit of time on when those dams will come into conversation, so.
Oh, yes, we did.
I thought we did it at
Well,
the first meeting.
We did, and I can,
Not today, today they said they
no,
didn't
but
know.
this, because we asked them to concentrate on Hadley Falls Dam today. Okay, they did say that in March of '24, that dam operator at Kelly's Falls was not gonna renew their lease,
Yes, he did say that.
okay? We were also told, that NOAA and Fish and Wildlife are requiring Kelly's Falls to have a fish ladder. And DES can do nothing about it, it's nothing to do with them, that's the feds that are requiring it, and Fish and Wildlife is part of FERC, and that's gonna happen. So all that stuff did happen. So, that information is out there, so I think we need to make our concentration on.
Did they say anything about Greg's Falls?
Well, the fish ladder deal is, fish ladder does Greg Falls no good if there's not one on Kelly's Falls. So that would be the first one, because you can only go so far. My conversations with an engineer, a dam engineer, who operates Greg's Falls, was telling me that he did a fish ladder, for a 4-foot fish ladder was nearly $2 million, which was verified today.
Yep, and this one
This one
is,
could well exceed $10 million,
Which one?
Kelly's Falls.
Kelly's Falls. But they just wiped out the lake for several months to repair the dam, right?
That was to, no, that was
That's
to
not true.
repair the powerhouse.
Powerhouse.
There was a leak in the powerhouse. They had divers go in there to try to fix it. And the divers wouldn't work. So that's when they had to draw down the water to fix the leak from the outside of the powerhouse.
So that they could do a full inspection.
yeah.
Yeah, and they could do a full inspection, but that fix the leak was the main reason.
Okay.
Mark?
So I guess the question that I have to ask, that dam, Kelly Falls Dam, is in Manchester, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Why are we even worried about it?
because it affects probably, what, 200 homes, Derek? Or
I can, Scott Bartlett, the assessor, did provide me a list of waterfront properties by each one, and I can share that with the board electronically.
Yeah.
I don't have it with me
But
this evening.
it's all Goffstown residents.
I understand. We definitely have a big piece of the puzzle down there, but, I mean, ultimately, it's Manchester's responsibility to find the money for that $10 million fish
No, it's
ladder.
not. That's not true.
So,
Why not?
Because according to the DES, right? The DES owns that dam.
Yep,
They lease that dam.
yep,
Manchester doesn't own it. It's just like Greg's Falls. We don't own that dam.
yep, but it's in Manchester.
Yeah. And Manchester could fight for it,
Yep,
but we have more residents on that lake than Manchester. It affects more Goffstown residents than it does Manchester residents.
But the point is, it's a river system, they're all interrelated.
I
I'd
understand.
rather go one step further. I'd like to take action to direct our state reps to collectively introduce legislation to fund a comprehensive study of the 34.7 mile Piscataquag River from its origins and Deering Reservoir to its discharge in the Merrimack River and present their findings to the select board. Let's get them to act on our behalf. You know, let's get some funding for the study so we know what we're talking about. Get out and do the study.
They said they were gonna do a study of the lake,
They're already doing a
They're
study.
doing that now.
Well,
It's
Is
currently
that
being
what, so
done.
what are you talking about that's different than what they're doing already?
I'm talking about the whole river system.
They are, that's what they're doing, from Darien down, right?
Yes.
Was that what it
That's
said, was it Darien?
That's what
or-
Eric.
Yeah, but somebody's gotta pay for it. That's what I'm talking about.
DES is doing it, isn't it?
But they're already, I thought they were already doing something. There's some part of the river.
Maybe we need clarification on that.
Yeah, because I doubt we're gonna get away with a pass on it.
So let's go back to the feasibility studies. That's the first step, no matter
Yeah.
what happens, they're taking down the dam, they're gonna do those studies and we need those studies, yes.
So jump forward to 2 dams, to the Kelly Falls Dam. I would like to send a letter to the Manchester Board of Mayor and Aldermen to advise them, do they know what's going on? Do they know that they could lose that
Why-
dam? I mean,
Why can't we have a hearing on the other two dams like we had on this one? So we have, because it is all interwoven.
I think that's what I heard Mark said that he was willing to do, is have a
Public
discussion.
information meetings?
Yeah.
Public
Yeah,
information,
public-
let's
yeah,
get
public
people,
meeting.
everybody's asking me, what's going on, you know,
Yeah.
the people on Glen Lake, we're gonna
Yeah.
lose our, you know, should we sell, and, you know,
I also just
So
want to
any-
say out loud before we get into the other 5 items that I think we need to be mindful of the amount of work that we're asking our staff to do, just knowing how at full capacity they are. And while I think we have an important role to play in this and we need to figure out a lot of things, I just want to be super mindful of how we manage that internally.
Like what are you talking about?
Just, you know, the amount of things that we're asking town hall staff to do, is it within our purview as the town, like just being conscious of, is it our responsibility to do that? Should we be asking, to Collis's point, our state reps to do some of those things, to ask DES to do some of those things? I'm not saying your request specifically, but I'm just saying in general, I just want to be really careful.
I'm not willing to rest on somebody else
Right.
taking care of our town. I understand that we work with them but I don't wanna say, okay, this is, you guys handle this. I understand what you're saying,
No, I'm not saying
but
that.
I'm not saying, I'm not willing to just, okay, tell the, let's get our state reps to go find money to do this study.
Well, for example.
When is that gonna happen,
Well, that would be, I'll be part of it.
you know?
You'd have to introduce legislation. Believe me, all those details would have to be in there.
I'm speaking, New Hampshire DES, working with them for them to put on a public meeting with the town.
That's
For
fine,
public
but
information.
we need to have a little bit more information.
Yes, I'm just
I
saying
would
that
be-
as an overarching comment, that I
Right.
just want us to be aware of that.
My point is, why are we making all these decisions on Hadley Falls, not knowing what's going on below, which might affect how we deal with Hadley Falls?
I don't think it affects Hadley, what we do at Hadley Falls at all.
Hadley Falls
Well-
is being demolished.
Yeah, but
No matter
let's
what.
remember, we don't know what's gonna happen when we remove the dam at Hadley Falls. There's a tremendous amount of sediment and debris that's collected behind that dam. That's gonna have an effect on the downstream river
Certainly.
properties. We don't know what's gonna happen. That's why it's gonna take a comprehensive study to figure out, when we take that out, how's the river gonna react? What's it gonna look like? Is it gonna move its banks? Is it gonna change its course?
Is that part of the environmental study they were talking about doing for the
I would
feasibility?
believe so.
Be part of the feasibility study, yes.
Okay, so back
So
to
that's what
that,
we're talking about.
requesting New Hampshire DES, we have to make a formal ask of them.
Yep.
Either we stick to our January 2024 timeline of them starting the feasibility at that point, the studies, or we request that they start that process earlier.
I'd say start it as soon as possible. Get it going.
That's what I think that's pretty much the consensus. And they were willing to do that too.
Yeah, sounded like it.
Yeah.
I just have to request that formally.
Yeah, let's send a letter to them, signed by all members of the board, formally requesting it, so we're on record.
All right, is
Is
that
that
a
okay,
motion?
Derek?
Yes.
Is that what you heard?
Well, that's what I have. I have a motion, yes, to expedite the feasibility study.
Right.
And there was a motion, a second on that.
I do think that we should pretty quickly have another meeting like we had today for the other two dams, so that people know the whole situation.
Well, let's take this motion that we already have on the floor.
Okay, motion by Collis, sorry, who seconded that? Mark seconded.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments about the letter? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? Okay, that motion passes.
Now, we spoke, Mark was right there when we spoke, they don't know. Kelly's Falls, they don't know. They don't know what that operator's gonna do, they don't know where it stands. I says, well,
Well,
are
I
you
know,
guys gonna maintain it? We don't know.
But let them tell the citizens of Goffstown at a public hearing.
So I think then the next one on the list would be, they asked that we work, Derek work
With Mark.
with Mark to coordinate a public meeting with town and New Hampshire DES. I think maybe it would be
I
appropriate.
thought that was a website we were supposed to be working on, information.
So IT is developing so similar to what IT did when we went through COVID. Also, we do every time we have elections come up, is to put a banner across or a button across
Yes.
the
But what I'm
homepage.
Thank you, Derek. But what I'm talking about specifically is the public meeting with residents that New Hampshire DES offered to put on. And what I was saying in response to your questions is I think we could potentially ask them to include that kind of information in that public hearing or public presentation.
People are afraid for the houses, I
Right.
mean,
And they need to hear it from them, I think is what you were.
Right.
But that's what they were saying 2 or 3 months down the road when they have more information.
Yes.
You're looking for information now for Greg's Falls and Kelly's Falls.
Well, I'm
Those
looking,
people are paranoid down there. I get it,
yeah, right.
but as court, ask Mark,
But I-
they told us today, they had no idea.
oh, nope, no idea.
No idea. They had no idea yet. It happened so quick in the last month or so.
They kinda got blindsided, just like we did, is what I'm feeling.
And they have no idea. And,
So what's gonna change that they're gonna have an idea?
well, they'll start negotiating with different operators.
So, that's at Kelly Falls.
Yeah. Glens Falls is all set. They got a lease and they're renewing their lease. And
Yeah, they generate plenty of power. That's
Yeah.
financially stable.
yeah.
So back to the public meeting, so we can ask or decide if we want Derek to start that process of scheduling something, or working with them to schedule something.
Yeah, as soon as we get information.
I assume you're not going to want to do this during July. and with school events and items ending, maybe not June as well, is August.
If we're gonna do it in August, we're not gonna do it in a small room, we're gonna have to do it in
Yeah.
Auditorium.
auditorium or
Yep.
something like that.
Yep.
And I would like to make sure that we have some kind of information to pass on, that we're not just gonna go there and rewrite the same thing over and over again.
Derek, if
And that's
you,
up to you and Mark to come up with, say, okay, we have enough information to move on.
Derek, if you request that happen in August with them, could you also ask if they would be willing, based on the list of property owners that you have, that they send out communication to those property owners?
I can make that request.
That would be great.
Why wouldn't we do that?
Because if they're willing to fund it and do the legwork for it, it's their public hearing, so. or
There would
public
not be a
information
public
session.
hearing.
Public information session. They provide notice.
That's something we can talk about, though.
Clark, can you find out if, what the state is doing now with the river is what you were talking about? Or, because we may want to follow up on your suggestion if it isn't.
You mean the study?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should follow up on it, see, because it wasn't crystal clear to me where they were going with that. I mean, they sounded like they were talking the right language, but I'm not convinced.
Okay.
All right, the next one was the meeting minutes. So these meeting minutes that Peter has, and then the ones from today. I know that the webpage is in progress.
Yes.
Can we put those and the ones from today, when they're done, on that?
Yep. Absolutely.
post them
The
there.
meeting minutes from April 20th are on the town website with all other meeting minutes, but we can put them in I guess, an easier location for people to get to.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to keep the history, if we can, of all the meetings and everything all together. And that kind of goes in with the communications strategy. So then my next question for the board is that, do we release something publicly on social media or otherwise in regards to the meeting we had today? Or just share the minutes, maybe on Facebook or something like that?
I would, if you want to do something on social media, I'd do, once the minutes approach,
Yeah.
put something on social media saying go to the website and read the minutes.
So we'll have to wait to approve those.
Huh?
So we'll have to wait to
Pending
approve
approval
those.
of the minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to keep that on the radar. That was all the takeaways I had. I think we discussed a committee, but I think we should wait to hear back about the feasibility and the other studies that's being done, and then,
I think there's a call, people are calling for some kind of a committee. I don't know if it's necessary right now, but we need to really think about it. You know, I don't see why we aren't starting something and then moving on to find people to get in it. You know, to who the people we want to have appointed to it, who are interested in participating in it.
I think the politics thing is important because people care. I mean, they really care. This is their homes and stuff, and it affects them. So even, even that's comforting, just having a policy or some kind of a committee to keep an eye on it. That's comforting to
And then
people.
if something comes up with the committee, we can always pass it on to whoever's running the website, and the committee found this
So
information.
Derek, I assume that would go through the standard process like we do establishing a charter?
If you wanted to do an ad hoc committee, yes.
Yeah, so
Yep.
who's going to be on committee?
Yep.
That sort of thing, what they're tasked with.
Yes.
I think that's something I don't think it has to be done right now until we have some more information to pass on. We
And
really don't have anything right now.
I would also ask if the town's gonna kind of statutorily be in charge of that, what the, like you said, the process of, what the outcomes of that committee would be. So I think we should all think about that.
That can all be laid out in the charter.
Well,
Right.
what's gonna happen is some group will make their own committee and they'll take charge of trying to disseminate the information that's out there.
I kind
They'll
of
be calling Derek and
But
they'll be calling Mark.
I
And
kind of
I don't wanna
disagree with
remove-
you. We should start it now, and even if there's nothing to do, at least
Yeah.
when it comes, we'll be ready to move, and we don't have to, I think it might,
I don't think that we should do that until we have a clear purpose for doing it. I don't don't
You-
think
we
that there
do.
is one.
We
Well,
do,
wouldn't-
we're talking about changing the entire character of the town.
I hear you, but I don't want to remove the select board from the conversation. And if there's no actionable outcome for a committee, again, that's a lot of work. And I just want to make sure we know what the purpose of that. I'm not saying that there isn't one, I don't know what it is. It doesn't, we're already doing that work.
I kind of agree with that. I mean, right now, we're the committee.
Yeah, that shouldn't be that way.
Huh?
No, it shouldn't be that way.
But I mean, that's
I
what
think
it
it
is.
should
Right
be.
now, we're the committee.
And all those details we can spell out in a charter. You know, who's on it? What are they gonna consider? What are their obligations for reporting? What's the timeline?
Yeah, I think the board will have to bring back some insight, maybe once we get more about the study.
Yeah.
And if they agree with our proposal about starting those, like, the feasibility studies will probably most likely have to happen first before there can be any actionable, you know, and at that
No
point, do we
question
include
about
the
it.
planning board and do we, you know what I mean? So I personally just want to see if we can figure out what that committee would be used for, because I don't want to be removed, I don't want the select board to be removed from that
Right.
conversation.
I mean, it's all about questions and answers to questions. Today, we had one question, we got an answer to that one question. The dam's coming out. We're clear on that.
And it's pretty
The
clear,
fee-
then, and the reasons, you can understand the reasons now.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But the feasibility study is gonna raise a whole different set of questions that'll come out of that that'll need to be answered. So, I mean, it's an evolving process. Feasibility study is the next step. Then we get into design, engineering, construction, till we're done.
So, would it be doable for us to have the board bring back their ideas for what that committee would do for the next meeting and think about who might be involved and that sort of thing?
Well, Derek's been pretty good at setting up ad hoc committees before. I don't know if he could at least frame it up for us so that it starts the conversation for us and gets the ball rolling.
Derek, do you have a clear direction of what an ad hoc committee would do?
No, but I can at least give you the framework
Yes.
and let you figure out how many members from, I guess, which sections of town, you know, which impacted residents you would want. I assume that you would want input from both of the lake associations of the impacted waterways, and so I can at least provide you with the framework and send it to you as a draft document, and then people can comment on it from there.
Now, Allard was over on the Maskey, was running the Maskey Lake Association for a while. I don't know if he still is, but
He is, yes, he works with Patty every year for their milfoil grant that they work with the state and the town on.
because I've been to his house to meet with him on
Yeah.
the Maskey Lake Association.
Somebody from PERLAC should be on it, Piscataqua River Local Advisory
Okay,
Committee.
yep.
Start a list, Collis. I'm sure you'll come up with a bunch of them. All right, any other Falls, New Hampshire DES things? That was all I had on my think about list, to-do list.
Well, there's a lot to think about, and I think the thing today was, well, we did get one thing finished. We know what direction we're heading on Hadley Falls, so we can tell people, you know, when they say what's going on, well, they're in the process of planning to remove the dam. I think that should be our answer right now.
Yep.
And I think it should be a united answer that's.
Yep, well, I agree.
Yeah, we have right now 3 actionable takeaway items for things to try to move it forward. 4 if you include the pre-work we'll do on the ad hoc committee.
This is where the board needs to show solidarity and really stick together and stay strong and think of the people for the community.
Any other comments on that? Oh.
Ready to go to non-public?
Can I,
Oh,
can I bring up one item?
yes.
What do we do, where are we currently with the Circle National Club? I mean, this is getting a little ridiculous in my mind. Where are we right at the moment?
So I've been providing information to the town attorney and working with the town attorney to get enforcement, so I'm continuing on that process.
Okay.
But we've been doing that for
Yeah.
over a year
For a
now.
while.
Well, it fell off over the winter, to be honest with you, but been working with
Would it be, is there any ramifications if we would notify Liquor Commission that we're having problems with them? Even if they say, well, we have nothing to do with this, it may be
I can talk to the police chief about that, yes.
Yeah, and why not?
but
I mean,
My patience is running thin, and those poor people down there are being subjected to things that they shouldn't have to be subjected to. I mean, they ought to at least submit it for a site plan approved from the planning board, and make sure they meet all the requirements for parking, access, yada, yada, right down the list. I mean,
actually parking on one of our town roads, it's not
Yeah.
an approved town road or
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know what that is anymore down there.
but all that would be fleshed out in the site plan review process.
All right, I have something for new business for all of you. So one of the, would you mind passing that to Mark? One of the select board previous goals was with the wellness committee and employee engagement and satisfaction. We talked about resurfacing the engagement study, so I went ahead and put together a handful of categories, but I'm hoping that we can have a discussion about what areas the select board would like to focus on. Also, the vehicle of which to collect the surveys. I had the idea to do it just town-wide and not department-specific. Hoping to not only engage more employees, but prompt more honest responses. And furthermore, the time frame in which we would do it. So I realize you didn't get these ahead of time, but something I'd really like us to think about, as it's been one of our ongoing goals.
So is it what you were asking us to do is maybe bring this back at our next meeting with the ones we think it should be?
Yes, I mean, this is quite a bit for a standard survey. It's typically at, on the long end, like 20 to 30 questions. This is quite a bit, but I did pull the questions that we asked in the last time, and also with some employee engagement surveys that I've been working on with the Army, and kind of put it all together so that we could kind of hone in on what we want to focus on. So it is too much, but yeah, I would like input, obviously, if you have any additions, and then trying to get it done before budget season kicks in, so that our department heads might be able to have time to assist us with giving people the opportunity to respond.
Kelly, I see one question talks about how you rate your physical health. All this stress and emphasis on mental health nowadays. I think that's kind of embodied in some of these other things. Do you think it's adequately touched upon, or? I don't know how to make it more
I think so.
direct.
Honestly, I'd have to read through it again, but I'll make that note, and,
I mean, that's all we hear about nowadays is mental health.
yep, I can look for that. We don't need an answer tonight unless you guys want to discuss any of these categories, but I just wanted to get that ball
I think we need to review these.
rolling. So at the next meeting, we can go through it.
It's kind of
again.
tough with some of these. Only the reason I say that is because some of them are kind of gauged by union negotiations and regulations, like when it comes to, your pay, well, that's what they negotiated, I mean, so it's,
So that'll give
I'm
you.
just saying, it's hard for some people to answer that because, they weren't in charge of what the pay was. It was like a union that negotiated it.
Yep, that's true. So at the next meeting, we can bring this up again, give you guys time to look through it and come up with anything you have.
How many bullets are you looking for?
I mean, typically on a long-ended one, it's like 20 to 30 questions, so I certainly don't want to go past that.
Okay.
But I mean,
Because then it gets,
it's too long.
they
People won't
start to
complete
ignore
it.
the end.
Yep.
I believe the last one we did about 15 to 20.
I can find that answer for
I
you.
don't remember off the top of my head, but this is too much, is what I'm saying. Okay, and the other thing, anyone else have any other new business? All right, old business, we have the bi-weekly payroll. Derek, do you have anything for that?
So in your packet, a couple items, you had asked for estimated savings. So you have the estimated staff time savings. We've broken them down into the department payroll processing when they're preparing their spreadsheet that they submit to finance, and then as well as what finance office estimates they would potentially have for hours saved. And then attached to this, you have the detail that shows the breakdown of both. And then you have the estimated cost fees associated with payroll and the estimated annual savings as well. Be happy to answer any questions you might have about that.
So you're telling me that reducing payroll period by half is going to save $2,288, that's it?
Correct, on costs and fees. Most of our employees are direct deposit, so you're reducing some of your ACH fees, but you're not going to have a significant amount of fees. So it's mostly with the items that we mail out to employees, the savings on postage. So there's not a significant amount of savings on the actual payroll processing.
Would it be fair to say it's more staff hours?
Yes. Yep. And then also on that memo, again, we're at page 84. I did share with the board an opinion from the town attorney. Timing of pay is considered a mandatory subject of bargaining under the federal bargaining law, so we can discuss in a non-meeting how you'd like to approach that with our 4 union groups.
Derek, I know I had asked some questions about things, specific payment things, like if someone's having their wages garnished by the federal government or the state government. Did the town attorney have any insight on if there was any notification process with that, or if the...
No, everything we've gotten from the Department of Labor is, as an employer, you have the ability to change, and those deductions can be adjusted as such. Is really the only thing that they provided feedback on was the 4 union groups.
Okay.
Because we had not previously negotiated that item, it was the status quo needs to remain.
Okay.
Something to think about.
All right. Do we have an action matrix? Let's see quickly. Any update on the police station?
No.
Collis, anything on the pedestrian bridge?
Well, let's see, we met.
I think Selectman Adams provided an update at your last meeting. We haven't met.
Okay, that's the
They're
same.
meeting once a month.
I see. And we got an update. Was there anything you wanted to add additionally?
No, I mean, it's a great group, they're very engaging, committed to the process. They all show up, provide good input, so I'm really happy with the way it's progressing.
Thank you. And we did get an update on 1 North Mast from Derek today. Got some grant updates.
And I just wanted to let the board know that we did receive communication from LCHIP today, that they did say that we were eligible to proceed with an actual grant application. So they were pleased with the letter of intent that was submitted. They did provide some valuable feedback, so I'll be working with HCC. They're meeting Wednesday night to submit that grant application.
Great, thank you. And then any update on the DPW trucks? Back in service? Same status, okay. All right. Anyone else have anything for old business?
I'm just curious on the out of service for emission controls. That wouldn't, that trailer wouldn't have any emission controls, would it?
Oh, start with the roll-up. Yeah. I should have put it on here when it was out of service.
All right, at this time, I'd like to open it up for public comment. Sir, are you here for public comment?
Sure.
Could just please state your name and address?
My name's Rob Schaefer, I live at 112 Elm Street. I was interested in this discussion on the various dams that you had. I find you all to be reasonable and practical people, so in no way am I challenging what you discussed tonight. I just looking to gather some information and background, because it's stuff I haven't been able to find elsewhere. But I was curious on the Hadley Falls Dam, sounds like it's scheduled to come down. Was there discussion, is there a reason it wasn't, or is there background on the use of the electric generation plant that was proposed a few years ago with the developer? What came of that, and why that wouldn't help contribute to trying to maintain it?
Okay, we participated.
Short answers are fine, too. I don't need
We
to-
had that conversation a couple of weeks ago when they first came in,
Yeah,
and the dam needs to be fixed and repaired, which, if you were at today's meeting, you heard the kind of
I
numbers they're
couldn't make
talking.
it, I was gonna try.
3 to 5, they have to rebuild the dam.
Yep.
They wanted the developer to participate in part of that. And then the payback to fix the dam and put the generation equipment in there was estimated to be 150 years.
Okay, that's what I'm assuming. It's just not
And-
practical.
Yeah, it's not practical. Doesn't generate enough power, doesn't have enough water flow through
Not
it
even close.
to generate enough power to pay for itself, really. So it wasn't feasible for the developer to do the project.
Yeah, okay. Is there a harm in leaving it in place and letting it deteriorate on its own?
Yeah, you have a potential flood damage if, on a high water, if something,
Be
like
catastrophic.
100-year flood or something, they could have catastrophic damage down. Because what happens is the dam fails, everything goes at once.
Okay,
So you get, and I'm not, maybe not the right term, but it'd be almost like a tidal wave going
Yep.
down through. And then that
so
would also
that's
hit,
what the concern is.
that would also hit
Floodplain blowout.
Greg's Falls with that large amount of water at once.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
it continues down.
So
okay.
just to clarify, sir, that decision has already been made by New Hampshire DES, that they'll relinquish the license and that demolition will happen.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like you're saying, yeah. So you can't, that course is moving ahead, it sounded like,
Correct.
yeah,
Yes.
right.
So please keep up with the website, that will be adding more information as much as we can,
Is-
sharing out.
Is it up, or is it that what you were proposing
It
tonight?
will be shortly, yes.
Okay,
We're
so that's
working on
coming.
it, yes.
Okay, and that will cover all the dams, did I catch, or no?
No, sir.
We will be
just-
able to share what information that we have. We will, there's quite a bit of information on the FERC website that we can search by the docket, and we should be able to share some of that information that may impact as well.
And that'll be through the town website?
Yes,
Some sort of
yep.
link or
Yep,
section there?
yep.
Okay. Then on the others, probably group them together, but on the Glen Falls and the Kelly Falls Dam, why is a feasibility needed? What is the issue there? That's,
Fish ladders.
is it just the fish ladders? Is the dam itself in fairly reasonable shape?
Kelly's Falls was the fish ladders. It's a 30-foot dam. They told us, we were told today, that $10 million is not out of the realm of
Right,
putting in a
I
fish
caught
ladder.
that, yeah. But is it, and the rest of the dam though is in fairly reasonable shape? Same with the Glen Falls one, it's generating
Well,
power?
they're gonna
We
be doing
think
some
so.
work at Glens Falls too, but that's, at this time, those two dams are okay.
And so they're doing what they do, they generate the power, they get the return that the owner needs and things like that, so it's just kind of the accessory areas, like a fish ladder and things like that.
But
that are an
again,
issue.
we don't own those dams, so we can only
Understood,
just
yep.
share the information that they've given us, and
Yep,
that could
that's all I'm
potentially
asking.
change very
Yep.
quickly.
No, I'm not pointing the finger or
No,
laying
just
it on
to
you
share that
guys.
it
I
might
know-
change as we get notices.
I can
we'll
understand
update.
how this works, it's pretty much out of our hands until you want to take ownership, right? But, yeah, okay, so
All right, so
that's
I
what it
don't
is.
want to jump the gun. Your question was there consideration given to letting it deteriorate naturally on its own? I think I heard your...
Yep,
We don't know that yet, but we're asking DES for alternatives, partial breach, full removal. We can ask them to look at that alternative. I don't know if it's plausible or not. That's a big engineering question to ask, so maybe if a portion of it has deteriorated, they may consider removing that deteriorated portion to partially breach it, but
right,
that's something that will come out of the alternatives analysis.
right, so
Yeah,
that's
whatever
the kind of stuff
information-
you're exploring and looking at.
Right,
got
whatever
a
they
dam
give
with a hole in
us, we will share it.
Yeah.
No putting your finger in that dike. All right.
Well, I appreciate your looking into it and keeping up with it. I'll see if I can keep tabs on it on the website. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Thank you for your service, too.
Make a motion, we go into non-public under RSA 91-A, colon 3, 2A promotion, B hiring, and D land.
Second.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. This will conclude our public portion of tonight's meeting, and thank you everyone for joining.
You gonna stay here?